Ann Arbor Inclusive is produced in part with the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues and CTN. The views and opinions expressed in the show do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of the Commission or CTN. For more information about the Commission on Disability Issues, visit a2gov.org/disability resources. If you have program topic suggestions, please email a2disabilityissues@gmail.com.
Hello and welcome to Ann Arbor Inclusive. I'm Tom Hoatland, your host. Arguably, transportation is one of the main vital services in any community, but we are lucky in Ann Arbor to have the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority due to its efficiency and the programs that they run. But since we're Ann Arbor Inclusive, we're really interested in learning more about services for people with disabilities. And so I'm happy that Tracy Byrd is here with us today. She's going to set us on the right path towards knowing everything about accessibility with AAA-TA. And I'd like to introduce her. Tracy, welcome to Ann Arbor Inclusive.
Well, thank you for having me, Tom. It's a pleasure.
Sure. Good. So why don't we first start out, as we always do, telling me a little bit about yourself and how long you've been there. And I'm sure your job has transitioned. And so give us the rundown of Tracy Byrd at AATA.
Of course, yes. Well, I've been here at the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority, also known as TheRide, for 8.5 years. Now, I started out as the travel trainer, and while my title has recently changed to mobility service coordinator, my role here at TheRide has not changed. But like you said, Tom, roles evolve, things evolve how the public or how our agency needs it to evolve. So my main focus here at TheRide is travel training, which I know we'll discuss in a little bit. But before I came at TheRide, I have about 24 years experience working in the community with older adults and persons with disabilities. Before I came for public transportation, I actually worked in government subsidized housing. So I think this was a really great step. When you talk about how important transportation is and how important transportation is in relationship to housing and how those really fit together. So I thought it was just a wonderful marriage or transition to come over to transportation from the housing. So
I can see why you were hired.
I'm a talker, aren't I?
I meant that I see why you were hired based on your career prior to.
And I didn't throw in, but back in I went to school as an older adult myself, and I did my internship here at TheRide back in 2012, and so had a little bit of a connection with them even before I started full time. And then actually the year before I started, I came on board as I guess, for lack of a better term, a contractor. I just actually came in 2 hours at the end of each day. I worked full time, but I came in from 5:30 to 7:30 Monday through Friday.
Wow.
And with the paratransit eligibility applications.
Okay.
So I've had my foot in the door somewhat with TheRide for a number of years before I came on board full time.
Yeah, I'm sure that helped as well. So you are full time.
I am full time, yes.
Oh, and by the way, I went back to school as an adult as well. I was a much better student as an adult than I was as a young adult.
You know what? I couldn't agree more that it worked out that way for me as well.
Yeah. So all right, so let's jump right into services for people with disabilities. Well, just before that, can you tell me which it is or how it works that it's AAA-TA, TheRide? Do we say all of it together? Why don't you educate us on that?
You know what? You could say it either way. Our proper name is the Ann Arbor Area Transportation Authority, for short, AAATA, AAATA. We also go by TheRide. So you'll notice our public buses do say TheRide on the side of them. All of our marketing information has TheRide written on it. So when we
So
talk
the ride isn't necessarily a program of AATA. It's a subname.
that is correct, yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, maybe I'll start using the ride from now on.
You use
So-
whatever works for you.
Thank you. Thank you. So tell us about, why don't we jump in and say, do you have programs for people with disabilities? And if so, what are they?
All right. So I work in the mobility services department. It's also known as paratransit. And what many people do know what paratransit is. Some people do not. That's why I'm here today, right?
Yeah.
So paratransit is for persons who, because of a disability, are either prevented from or substantially limited from riding regular fixed bus routes. Now, I say regular fixed bus routes because that's what we have here in Ann Arbor. Other agencies, such as New York, might have ferries and subways, but here we have buses. So, and paratransit mirrors the regular fixed bus route, meaning that it runs where our buses run at the times our buses run. I won't get too far in the weeds, but it like I said, it goes where our buses goes, and then 3/4 of a mile past our last bus stop.
Okay.
And there is an eligibility for that. And I know that for individuals, it's not based upon disability alone, but how your disability, again, prevents or substantially limits you from riding regular fixed bus routes. And what paratransit is, we also know, people who are in Ann Arbor know it as paratransit, A-Ride, or the green card. And then we call it the green card because it has your photo and has a green stripe at the bottom. So
Okay.
it is, those are the description, and people use all three terms for this program. And for the A-Ride program, that is an origin to destination program, meaning that if, because of your disability, you're not able to take the regular fixed bus route, that means that once you qualify for paratransit or A-Ride, a vehicle picks you up at your home and takes you to your destination. It is a shared ride service. I know a lot of times people, especially for individuals like me, before I moved to Ann Arbor, I am from a small town in Ohio called Quaker City. It is a very small town, still only has one stop sign, so no public transportation. I had no idea about public transportation when I first moved to the area. So, you know, I didn't know how public transportation runs. So a lot of people think that if a vehicle's coming to their home to pick them up, it'll take them directly to their location, which I have alluded that it does. However, shared ride service, which means that once I get into that vehicle as a qualified individual riding a ride, that vehicle, that person, that driver can stop at other locations, pick up other passengers, or drop them off along the way. So it is a shared ride service. There is a cost for that service. It is $3 each way. For individuals who might need a personal care attendant with them, or a PCA, because we like to use a lot of acronyms, right?
Sure.
PCAs can actually and do ride for free when using paratransit services. So that is the actual program or the department which I work under.
I also read that somebody could bring up to 2 additional guests, but
Yes.
you have to count the PCA as one of them.
Yes, and that also the extra guests are as room permits, because we are a service for persons with disabilities, we want to make sure that when we're booking trips, that somebody doesn't have so many companions or guests with them that we displace a qualified rider. So, you know, there could be sometimes, especially at a more popular time or a busy time, right, peak hours, that you may not be able to bring to additional guests.
Yeah,
You
for
know,
sure.
there are some times that, we have to make adjustments, and it is, I try to tell people, I think that we have a fantastic program, but it doesn't mean that it's a perfect program or that there's not room for improvement. There's always.
Yes. Yeah, no one's perfect,
Yeah.
and no program is perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, and so are those all the services for people with disabilities?
No, so
Right.
I wanted to discuss that paratransit program first.
Yeah.
But, because we as human beings, we like to talk about what we can do, not about what we're prevented from doing.
Yes.
There's a lot of times, I whenever I talked about the paratransit, I said for individuals who are either prevented from or substantially limited. Well, what does substantially limited mean? If I sometimes can ride the bus, can I ride the bus if I have a disability? And my answer is absolutely. You can do whatever you want to do, and when you want to do it. And that's what the bus allows, right? You just get on and travel where you need to go. So that's where I come in as the travel trainer. Let's say for an individual, I do many different types of training for travel. But for an individual, let's just say that somebody has a cognitive disability, and maybe they're not able to safely navigate many routes, but they just got a new job and they want to be able to get back and forth to work and not have to depend on paratransit. So they give me a call. A client can give me a call, a writer can give me a call directly. I can get referrals. We can discuss that in a moment. But I meet the person where they're at and we ride the bus together.
That's so cool.
I think I should go back. I'm so sorry, Tom, go right ahead.
No, I just said that's so cool that we have that in our community, that you actually travel with people. You don't just talk about it.
No, I don't just, and sometimes people, that's all they need. They just need to be pointed in the right direction.
Yeah.
But which, that brings me to the different types of training that I have. For individuals, I have what we call a field training or a field destination training or a general training. A general training, like you said, might be, I just need to know where routes go. How explain how your writer's guide works, or so that might be a phone conversation. It might be emails back and forth, or it might be me just meeting that person and showing them. But the destination training is a little bit more intensive. So let's just say, again, that individual who may have never ridden the bus and they've gotten this new job and they really need assistance. So it first and foremost starts with a referral. Again, agency or self-referral is fine. And then an assessment. And when I do an assessment with somebody, because I have test anxiety really bad. So I try not to, when I say an assessment, I usually don't use those terms when I'm talking to an individual. I'll just say, this is a chance for us to get to know each other. Questions on how you learn best. Do you learn by just doing? Do you learn by having step-by-step? Do you learn by visual, like pictures and things like that? So that gives me an idea how to base that person's training. And then we meet. Our first day of training, I meet them at their front door and we walk to the bus stop. And then we do that, a couple of times. Each person is different. Some person may need me only do that once. Some people might need me to do that 2 or 3 times. And then I gradually go and meet them at the bus stop. And we do things like I show them landmarks, when to pull the cord, where to sit on the bus. If they have questions, who do they ask? If they feel somebody is bothering them, who do they tell? Things like that. So everything that we can think of that goes along with taking public transportation, we discuss. And then my training fades off. So what I might do is say, okay, our next training, you'll see me in a vehicle and you're going to get on the bus and I'm going to follow the bus to make sure you've gotten on and make sure you get off at your destination.
Okay.
And then the last part of the training, I just do spot checks, meaning like I will I will see that they got on the bus, and then I will go directly to their destination and make sure they got off. A lot of the times the rider won't see me at that point in time. I'm just doing spot checks to make sure they got what they needed to be able to navigate to and from their destination. Now, during our training, we also practice getting lost. So I try to distract the person. And,
I would need that training.
pardon me?
I would need that training.
Well, I tell people I tend to, you might have to do this to bring me back around to the subject, because I tend to digress a little bit.
Yeah.
I tell people the very first time I ever rode a public bus, my daughter, who was 2 at the time, and I decided to take her to the Hands-On Museum. I lived in Ann Arbor. The buses were called the Ann Arbor Transportation Authority at that time. I didn't know they went to Ypsilanti. And so I got on the bus to take me downtown. Well, it took me downtown Ypsilanti versus Ann Arbor. And I was completely lost. And
Yeah.
the driver helped me along. So, we all have to learn, right? But so I remember that, how it was like for me and how scared I was and how mixed up I got when that happened.
Yeah.
But I try, when we do training, I try to distract the person I'm working with a little bit so they miss their stop. And how do you determine where to get off?
Yeah.
As soon as you realize, like, oh, that's where I needed to get off, you pull that cord, you get off at the next stop, and then you just walk backwards. Well, not technically.
Some people might not be able to, though.
They may not be able to. So we talk about what happens. What happens if you get lost? What happens if you missed your stop and you don't know where to go? So we talk about that. Do you have a cell phone that you have a friend, your parents, your guardian's phone number, or your boss that you can call someone? I ask people at the start of training, I actually make little identification cards on the routes that they need to take to get there.
Okay.
The destination is and the phone number of their destination, their emergency contact. So if they are not able to, they're upset. They've gotten lost. Now they're late for work. They don't know how to verbalize where they need to go. They can show that to the driver. And I teach them that you just show this to the driver and let them know, I've gotten lost. I need to be turned around. Then we can take that plan of action. Either that driver will say, oh, you know what? Stay up here close to me. And when we turn around and go back past, I'll make sure you get off at that stop.
So a bus would actually turn around?
Well, a lot of our buses do loops. So they're at the end of that line and then they're just looping back around like, oh, we can do this. Or they'll call dispatch and say, I've got this person who is lost. This is what they need to do. I mean, there's many different scenarios of things that can happen, but we do discuss that in training. What do you do if you get lost? Because we all get lost. We all get turned around. It's just, you have the skills to be able to say, okay, I've gotten lost. It's not the end of the world. What do I do? And that is part of the assessment as well. And, my job is to get people where they need to go and successfully do that. But it's not to set people up to fail. So sometimes when through that assessment process, I might say, you know what? I think that let's do some other things right now to get you out in the community. Maybe paratransit is the best option for you now. Of course, it's not my decision to make, it's somebody else's, or it's the client's decision to make. But I don't want somebody who is so fearful to get on the bus that they're not going to do it and then they never want to get on the bus again. Sometimes it's steps. I tell this was quite some time ago. I was working with a woman who was very fearful of getting on the bus. And what we did, our first couple of trainings, I walked from her front door to the end of the sidewalk. That was our training. And then we walked down to the end of the block. And then
it sounds like every person that you train gets a custom training based on their needs.
Absolutely. And that is, because that's what it's about. It is, if you had come to me, Tom, for it's about you, it's not about me, right? I'm here to serve you. and get you what you need to be independent and be able to get out there, and believe me, I still have a lot to learn. Each person I work with teaches me something a little differently, or how to word things. And I go back to, and I will never use real names, but I was working with this woman, we'll say Sally, and Sally had ridden public transportation where she lived prior to Ann Arbor, but it was a very small agency, very small town. And so she was able to do it pretty much independently, but, came to me, and we were working together, and we were probably about on our 12th session. Generally, I work with people about 10 times.
Oh, wow.
But we were on our 12th session, and she still, how I was describing things still wasn't resonating with her. And I'm like, what am I doing? Banging my head against the wall. And finally I said, if you don't mind, let's deviate. Instead of going where you wanted to go for your training, how about we add an extra training? Because she told me she loved to go to the library. So I said, let's go to the library instead. And when we got there, I asked her, I said, show me what kind of books you like to read. And so she liked, it was in the children's section. So she was reading the books to me. Well, I finally got an idea. Instead of writing this, step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, going down, that she just wasn't getting. I thought about, and I was like, huh. So I went back to my office that next day, and I wrote a book for her.
Wow.
The publisher. And so I did, and she had a cat. And so I put Sally and Boo Boo's Big Adventures, Bus Adventures. And
Nice.
I changed those steps into Sally likes to take the bus, and this is where she walks. And I had taken a picture of the bus stop closest to her home so she could read, so she could see the picture of the tree. Yeah. And then Sally rides this. And, all along, her cat was sitting beside her, which the cat can't do that. Pets can't ride on the buses. But, for the book, and it was really funny. I gave it to her. And the next time I read the book, she was able to ride the bus.
Wow.
So, and I was like, I was floored that that's all it took. And that was a lesson for me, that I thought I was meeting her where she was at, but I wasn't. And I felt really, I'm glad that I learned the lesson, but I felt bad that it took me so long to learn that lesson on how she needed to learn. So, now I'm a little bit better. I mean, this was when I first started. So now I'm a little bit better about reading people like, they're really not getting this. Let's describe it. Let's move directions, so.
Again, that would be me.
Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have any idea how many people have been trained to ride your different services?
I probably should have looked that up before I talked to you, but we always say before COVID and after COVID, right? So I would say since I started, it was a slow process starting and building up this service, and then boom, 2020 hit, and now now it's kind of coming back a little bit more. But I would say over the course of 8 years, I have probably reached out to over 400 people.
Wow.
500 people. Now, keep in mind, that's not individualized training only. I do group trainings where I meet people, senior communities, schools, wherever there's a group of people, and we do training. And again, that's more of a destination, more of an overall training, not that one-on-one. But I also do travel one-on-one just sessions where it's like how to read a map, how to read our service area map, how to read the ride guide. So that's all those different types of trainings. I don't have a number off the top of my head. I would say it would be close to 100, 120 individuals that I train. But
that's a lot of training. And a vital service. I think it's great that we have all these options. Have we listed all the programs for people with disabilities now?
Yeah, so it is that within our paratransit department is that, and are those two programs, the travel training and the paratransit, or the A-Ride or green card, got to add all those in. But part of my job as the mobility services coordinator is, again, we're here in Ann Arbor. We have a limited service area to Ann Arbor, Ypsilanti. Again, there's some townships that we service as well. But I really try to make connections in the community with other agencies that provide transportation that maybe we cannot, like out of our service area. So I have worked very much, very closely with the WAVE to get people coming in from Dexter and actually they do service Manchester, so that mostly Dexter and Chelsea area, or the AARP Ride at 50 Plus program, which helps fill in gaps. I won't get into their program. I know from time constraints, as well as I don't work for their program, but I wanted to give a shout out to them that they are really a great program that helps fill the gaps in transportation.
Yeah, before we go, I wanted to know if there's somebody with a disability that is watching the program, today's program, how do they start? Where do they start? Do they start with Tracy Byrd or what?
Well, I would say, call us at TheRide, our general office number, which is 734-973-6500. We're also on the web at theride.org. You can find information that way, but just call our general office number and ask to speak to me.
Okay, all right, that sounds good. How do you promote the program?
I do things like this.
Yeah.
I'm hoping, to reach out to a grander audience this way. But again, another part of my job is community outreach for our program. So I go to health fairs, to community events, to, like I said before, schools, to doctors' offices, to community mental health, Fresh Start Clubhouse, now Jewish Family Services, out there to, any social service agency. I don't want to leave anybody out that I work with, but any social service agency, I try to just get my name out there and let them know who I am, what I do.
Well, Tracy, I think we could talk all day about the unique services, and one thing I did gain, not one thing, but one of the things I gained was that your programs your training are customizable, that you can tailor it towards that person's needs and so forth. So I really appreciate you coming in, and I would imagine people with disabilities can find you pretty well on your website. I was able to navigate right to the services by doing that. So we really appreciate the work that you do. What you do for our disability community is so important. It gets us from point A to B easier. So we appreciate that. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thank you for having me, Tom. I have so enjoyed our conversation, and I hope you have a wonderful day.
Yep, and thank you to our viewers for tuning in. And as always, we are Ann Arbor Inclusive, and we are a program of the Ann Arbor Commission on Disability Issues at CTN. For everyone at Ann Arbor Inclusive, I'm Tom Holtland, and we'll see you next time on Ann Arbor Inclusive.